Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Thomas. I'm a Douglas County Commissioner, and I'd like to welcome everybody in the room and online who tuned in to find out all about elections in Douglas County. Having been a candidate and knowing that my future depended on what happened with that elections office, I have taken tours of the office, so I understood everything that was going to happen when those important ballots were being counted. I wanted to be here tonight to let you know that I've known Clerk Sherry Davis for decades. And this woman has a true heart for customer service. And she has in that feeling of customer service has gone throughout her department. And she expects everyone who works for her to do the very best. I've known Jack because he managed an election that I was involved in. And I can tell you that I have the utmost confidence in Sherry, Jack Twite, who manages the elections office, and Laura Skirty, who is their communications director. So I would just like to tell you, I have confidence in all of them, and I bet by the end of this hour, you will do as well. Commissioner Teal?
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and well said. I don't think I've known everybody quite as long as Commissioner Thomas, but indeed, this is a great team that we have running elections here in Douglas County. And I know many of you are joining tonight. You've got questions about elections here in Douglas County. You're concerned about how elections go around the country, and it is my, I am certain that you will walk out of here today feeling much better about how elections happen here, and that your vote is safe. Your vote will be counted the way that you cast it, and that the voice of the people of Douglas County will once again speak this November. With that, it's time to turn you over. It's time for us to normally leave when usually we have to stay, and turn you over to our great clerk and recorder, Sherry Davis. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you all who are here in person and online. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining our live town hall. I'm Douglas County Clerk and Recorder Sherry Davis. And if you voted an election, gotten married, purchased a car, traveled internationally, or bought a new home, you've interacted with the Clerk and Recorder's office. So our goal is to make local government service convenient, fast, and easy, and to serve you with excellence. So today we're going to talk about a cornerstone of democracy, our elections process. But before we dive into that, I want to call your attention to the other services our office provides and how we make them convenient for you. So did you know that you can skip the trip and skip the trip to our office and complete many of your transactions online? For motor vehicle services, visit douglasdrives.com. That's douglasdrives with an S.com. And for recording office, visit dougcorecording.com. We don't just record your home and property documents. We also issue marriage licenses and offer appointments for your new passport applications. And of course, douglasvotes.com. Our voter registration and election information. And that's what we're here to talk about today: the security and integrity of the elections process and how we make sure your vote counts just like it's supposed to. And so let's get started with our moderator, Roger.
All right. Thank you, Clerk Davis. We want to get to your questions this evening. So if you're on the phone, press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Once the operator notes your information, you'll be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until it's your turn. When it is your turn, I'll call your name and ask you to repeat the question for our live audience. Now, to ask a question online, enter it into the dialog box that you'll see right below your viewer online, and I'll read it aloud when the time comes. And if you're here in the hearing room with us today, just raise your hand and we'll bring you a microphone so everyone in the room, online, and on the phone can hear your question. There'll be a segment coming up where we'll be specifically looking for questions here in the hearing room. Since we'd like to get to as many people as possible, limit all speakers to just one question. So help us with that if you would. Let's go back to Clerk Davis.
Thank you. I am so honored to serve as your clerk and recorder. This is my first term, but I worked in the office of clerk and recorder for more than 25 years right here in Douglas County, serving as the deputy of recording, elections, and motor vehicle divisions before being elected. I'm joined by our panel today by our deputy of elections, Jack Twite Jr., and our communications project manager, Laura Skirty, who will also be helping answer questions about the elections process. So, Jack, would you like to say a few words?
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us. Clerk Davis and I are both nationally certified election administrators, many people may not know is all of our clerk and recorder staff in the elections division are also certified by the state of Colorado as election professionals. We work year-round to maintain and update your Colorado Secure Voter Registration database and to plan and conduct each election within Douglas County. This year is a busy one. We've got the presidential primary in March, state primary in June, the general election in November, and we look forward to answering your questions that you may have about our process. Now I'd like to hand it over to Laura to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Clerk Davis and Jack. I'm Laura Skirty. I'm the Communications Project Manager for the Office of Clerk and Recorder. And talking to you, our citizens, answering your questions, which are so important, and providing clear and trusted information to our community to make sure our local government is serving you at the highest level. That is what my job is all about, and that's why we are all here tonight. So thank you so much for being here with us. If you've ever wondered about something, you don't understand something doesn't sound right, reach out to us and ask us. We are your local government officials, your local elected official, and we are here to provide that trusted source of information. So thank you so much for this opportunity tonight. And Roger, I'll send it back to you so we can get to some questions.
All right, thank you very much. Before we do take our first question, let me remind you that if you'd like to ask a question on the phone, press *3 on your keypad. And if you would like to participate online, you can always visit douglas.co.us/town hall and enter a question online below the viewer. So let's start with a couple questions that have come in online. Our first question came in from Larry, and he asked, how do voter rolls get updated, and how do you make sure only the people who are supposed to get a ballot actually gets one? Who'd like to take that?
Thanks, Roger. I'll take that. So how voter rolls get updated here in Colorado is through a variety of ways. First and foremost, information provided to us by you, the voters. Most commonly, I would suggest douglasvotes.com, where people can click on the link to update and maintain their voter registrations. We also receive information from the Colorado Department of Health and Environment, as well as the Social Security Death Index, should we have a voter who passes away. That results in an inactivation of a record. Any notice we receive from the Colorado Department of Corrections for those who may be incarcerated or on parole due to a conviction of a felony. National change of address forms. So when you move and you update through the National Change of Address Registry through the U.S. Postal Service, we receive that information and can facilitate an update. In addition, any undeliverable official election mail that is returned to us will result in an update to the voter's registration as well. We inactivate that registration. And additional updates come to us from the Colorado Department of Revenue. For example, getting a new driver's license, updating your address on your driver's license will trigger an update to us. We also, to be sure that everybody's information is updated correctly, initiate a correspondence with voters to confirm any changes to their voter registration. Ultimately, though, it is your civic responsibility as a voter and a citizen to maintain your record and to do so. Most frequently and conveniently here in Douglas County through douglasvotes.com, where you can click on the Register Update Voter Registration link right there on our main page.
All right, let's go to the phone for our next question. Greg, you're live. Go ahead.
Grizzly.
Go ahead, Greg. You're live on the call. What's your question? Hello, Greg. All right, well, we'll come back. I'll ask the Samantha to put Greg back in the queue, and we are going to go to Jessica next. Jessica, go ahead.
are we doing the electronic voting machines, and are only citizens voting in this election?
So would you repeat the last part? We hadn't understood, are you using electronic voting machines? What was the second part?
Are we still using the voting machines? And are only citizens voting
Only
in this
citizens
election?
voting. All right, thank you.
Citizens.
Okay, this is Sherry. I'm going to answer that for her. In Colorado, we use only paper ballots. And if you see a machine in the voter service and polling center, it's a ballot marking device for anyone who has a disability. For persons with disabilities, they will use that. They can listen to the ballot options as they're read, and they will make a selection, and it will fill out their ballot for them, and then it will be printed at that time. But we count only paper ballots in Colorado across the state. And it is a requirement that you're a citizen in order to register to vote. So yes, only citizens vote.
All right, thank you, Clerk. Let's, again, just a reminder, if you're participating on the phone, press star 3 on your keypad. If you would like to ask a question online, enter it in the dialog box, and I will read it when that time comes. And if you're here in the hearing room, please raise your hand now, because we're going to be coming to the hearing room section soon, and we'll know where to bring the microphone. Clerk Davis, why don't we start, and this may be a good time to just go over some basics for conducting elections.
Okay. So one of the things that I like to bring to your attention is that every step of the process is completed by our team of certified election professionals who work with election judges who are right here from our own community, and they represent different political parties. So there are the checks and balances and oversight by different political entities. We also follow very strict and detailed election laws, rules, and security requirements. And we're under 24/7 video surveillance while we're in the office. Our voting ballot drop-off locations are also under surveillance. And so we have the security measures in place in order to ensure that that is handled. Also, all the work is checked every step of the way, and our paper ballots are 100% auditable. So this is how you know that we're doing it right. And we have a video called The Life of the Ballot, and it's on our website, douglasvotes.com. So please take a few minutes to watch it so that you can see every step in the process in action, because we actually videoed from the time person drops it off to when it gets counted, and it's very interesting. Also, douglasvotes.com, you can sign up to track your ballot from the time that it's mailed to you to when your vote is counted. So you can choose to have either a phone call, an email, or a text message when we receive your ballot, when it is accepted, and when it is counted. So all along the way, you are confident that it has made it into the count room and that it has been counted.
All right, thank you. Let's hear next from a question here in the hearing room.
My name is Ken Ayers. The question I've got is, you hear a lot about ballot stuffing. If somebody were to stuff a bunch of ballots in a drop box, let's say, do those get counted? Because you keep hearing, there's all this going on, and do they get counted because they're dropped in the box and they may be in valid envelopes?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. This is Jack, and I'll be happy to answer that for you. So safety measures we take here in the state of Colorado ensure that the outgoing ballot packet and envelope is one envelope with one serial number per voter. And when those envelopes come back to us, that serial number that's on those envelopes that come back. So for those of you who like to black out the barcode, makes us work a little extra hard to make sure we can validate your vote. But we use that barcode that's on your return envelope. It's one per voter per election and never repeated. So when that envelope comes back in a Dropbox, in the scenario, let's say somebody throws 3 or 4 in there. Those would be invalid because the sequence of serial numbers would probably not match ours. And if somebody made copies of those envelopes and tried to put them back, if we receive 2, only 1 gets counted. In addition, anytime we have an irregularity like that, which we've not had any kind of ballot stuffing episodes within Douglas County, but should we receive multiple envelopes for an individual, the very first thing we do is engage our district attorney's office and have an investigation launched.
Right.
I'd like to add something to that, and that is that when we receive those envelopes back, we check the signature on the back of the envelope to the signature that the voter has provided that is stored in the voter registration database, so that we have to confirm that that is your signature if you've signed it. If it doesn't match, we send out a letter asking, did you vote this ballot? The signature appears not to match, and they have to provide ID and affirm that that was their ballot. If we receive nothing back, those automatically go to the district attorney again for investigation.
All right. Let's go to an online question next from Sujeen. She asks, we want a ballot drop box in Sedalia. Don't tell us to just mail it. Please don't make us drive to Castle Rock to drop the ballot off.
Jack, why don't you take that?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for bringing that up for us tonight. Per statute in the state of Colorado, we are required to have a minimum of 1 drop box for every 12,500 voters in our county. And through the process, every time we look to add a new box, Clerk Davis and the team get together and we geographically look at representation across the entire county to make sure drop boxes are placed in the best and most convenient locations. Sedalia is on our list of places to consider for our next series of drop boxes. I'm not guaranteeing that's where the next one will go, mind you, but yeah, Sedalia is on our tick sheet to take a look.
All right. Let's go to the phones next and hear from Diana. Diana, go ahead.
Yes, since Judicial Watch won a court case against the state of Colorado regarding our voter rolls that are inaccurate, and they show that people who have moved out of the county, out of the state, people who have died, etc., have voted. How did that happen? And what does the county or the state intend to do about that?
This is Clerk Davis, and I will say that we have not found any cases like that. We do have researched those accusations, and we have not found evidence to support it. We do receive death records from our health department in Colorado, and we cancel those records as soon as we receive them. Now, there are situations where someone will receive a ballot, they will vote their ballot, and then return it, and by the time before election day, they pass away. And that is still a legal vote. So that does occur. Also, if someone has moved, it's a dual responsibility. Someone needs to tell us that they've moved. Either they need to fill out a change of address with the USPS, they need to go online and update their voter registration system, or they need to come into our office or email so that we know that you've moved. Otherwise, we don't know that you've moved. So it's also the voter's responsibility to update their information. And we do all the checks we can, and we need your help making sure that your voter registration is up to date. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. One more reminder that if you have a question on the phone, press *3 on your keypad. If you're participating online, just enter your question in the dialog box and I'll read it aloud. And if you're here in the hearing room, we'll have one more opportunity to ask a question here. Laura, would you take a few minutes to talk about how folks can get involved in the election process?
I would love to. Thank you so much, Roger. Public engagement and oversight is a fundamental part of the process. We literally could not conduct an election without our own citizens who are hired as temporary election workers to come in alongside our team of certified election professionals to complete these statutory duties. And the best way to learn about the process is to participate hands-on. So if you've ever wondered, what is an election judge, a poll worker? How do I do that? The best way to start, if you're a registered Democrat or Republican, every 2 years we urge you to go to your political party's caucus. What happens at caucus, one of the functions is they ask folks who are interested in serving as an election judge to sign up on a list saying, I'm interested. By law, our elections office has to exhaust those lists that the parties provide us from caucus every 2 years first when we hire election judges, before we can then hire other interested Republicans, Democrats, or minor party or unaffiliated voters. So contact your political party because this is a caucus year and caucuses are coming up the first week of March. So that's a great way to start. If you're unaffiliated or a minor party, go to douglasvotes.com, our fabulous website with all the great information. And we have an election judge information page. There you can read about all the different roles that we hire for, what the time commitment is like. They are paid temporary roles with Douglas County. And we ask that you fill out the interest survey. And that gets your contact information into our database so that we can contact you for each election cycle to see if you're interested and available to serve. So once we exhaust those caucus lists, we go to folks who just sign up on douglasvotes.com, and it takes hundreds of election judges to put on an election. So we are always appreciative and looking for the help. And that's that important check and balance you mentioned, Clerk Davis. These are members of our own community representing different political affiliations, literally doing the tasks. So they are checking each other every step of the way. They're not going to let each other get away with anything. And it's such a wonderful part of our democratic process. It is so neat to see. We wear the red and blue lanyards, our judges do. Or white for unaffiliated. And you're seeing everyone working together to make sure the process is going the way it is supposed to go. There is another opportunity to just observe election processes. It's called being a watcher, an election watcher. It is not a hands-on role. You would need to be appointed by either a candidate, a political party, or an issue committee, depending on the type of election, to then come in and observe on their behalf. And then you can ask questions to your watcher contact that will accompany you, but it's not a hands-on role. So we always say, if you want to learn more about the process, if you want to make sure you trust the process, signing up to serve as an election judge is a great way to do that.
All right, let's take a minute to ask a survey question. We have a question that we want to ask our audience relative to election topics and what you'd like to hear next. It's easy to participate. All you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. If you are participating online, just click your response. And for those of you here in the room, our staff is now coming around with a paper ballot. Here is the question. What election topics would you like to know more about? Press 1 for voter registration database. Press 2 for mail ballot security features. And press 3 for ballot tabulation. Press 4 for audits and of election results. So 1 is voter registration, 2 mail ballot security, 3 ballot tabulation, and 4 audits of election results. We'll report on the results in a few minutes. And now we're going to take a few more questions. I'm going to read one that came in online. And that is, do unsigned ballots get counted? And are you given a chance to correct that mistake?
Yes. So yes and no. So again, if the ballot envelope is unsigned, we'll send a letter to that voter and ask, let them know that they did not sign their ballot, ask them to contact us. And if we can what is called cure the situation, the irregularity, then their ballot can be counted. Otherwise, it is not sent through the process, and it is sent to the district attorney.
How often are ballots that are sent to the district attorney acted upon?
I can tell you that we have had several that have gone forward into the court system, and that's been over the last, golly, 20 years. So they do investigate them. They actually will go and contact the voter, and the voter many times will say, yeah, I was just in a hurry and I, wrote my signature. It's not my regular signature because I was signing it on the steering wheel as I was driving up to the ballot box. And when they ask why they didn't fill out the form to submit to cure that, they said, well, by the time that that was available, there were already results and I didn't think it would matter anyway. So they just kind of blow it off.
Let's hear.
But we would encourage them not to do that. We still want to get that letter back, cure the ballot, and have it counted.
All right, let's hear from Robert next on the phone. Robert, go right ahead.
Yeah, howdy. So I see that there's a big loophole about people that are moving out of state and they don't tell Colorado, I moved. I mean, and then once they move out of sight, out of mind, they're not going to remember. They're going to, very rarely or someone. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are still registered in the state that have moved out of town, out of state. I know that as a fact for certain people that I've known. And then their families still get the the ballots every year, and then I know that there's some that have passed away, and then they still keep getting the ballot. So seems like a big loophole.
Well, it's if somebody signs that ballot and returns it, the signature is not going to match, and it's going to go to the district attorney. But it is the voter's responsibility to update their address, put in a change of address form so that we can be notified. Or the voter needs to go online to douglasvotes.com and let us know that they've moved. If they don't notify us, we don't know. And the person receiving the envelope can always write, not at this address, and drop it back in the mail, and it will come back to us unopened, and we'll know that they're no longer there. So we can inactivate that record and no longer send those ballots. But no action taken is going to result in the same thing happening.
I'm hearing you say that you're not mind readers in the office.
I dropped my crystal ball a number of years ago and it cracked. So it doesn't
People have
work
got to
like
help
it
you out
used to.
here. All right, let's hear from Susan next. Susan has, I think, a comment that's relates to this topic right now. Go ahead, Susan.
Hope it does. So I'm commenting on the verification process. And at one point, a couple years ago, I had broken my wrist. My signature was different. I got an immediate letter within days explaining the problem, the process to fix it, et cetera, et cetera. And I did cure it, as they say. But I just want to say that, if that gives anybody any comfort, it was immediately rejected. And I actually signed it, but I was impaired. So.
Thank you for that, Susan.
All right, Jacqueline, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Of the mail-in ballots. I mean, it's really nice to do that each day. But my problem is I've been a Colorado resident for 45 years. And I remember when we used to all go over to the local schools, we'd stand in line with our neighbors and we'd all put our vote in and ballot and ID and all that kind of stuff. And there was it helped us to create a stronger sense of community. And I find that, with this missing, that it's really kind of now you got to just mail it. And we don't know who everybody is. It's just taking it away from being something that you do in your neighborhood with your neighbors. And I just wanted to comment on it. I really miss that. And do you ever intend on going back to having any voting in the schools?
Well, unfortunately, we live in a different time now, and the schools are not real hip on us bringing a bunch of strangers into the schools where the kids are attending school. It's just a safety issue today. So no, we won't likely be using the schools. We used to use the high schools for our voter service and polling centers. However, when the law changed to require us to have all of our voter service centers open the Monday before the election and election day, the schools were no longer a viable option because there are students in the school on Monday. So, it's really a catch-22. We don't want to put anyone in harm's way or have any parents fearful about strangers coming in the school. So likely not going to use schools in the future. But I hear what you're saying about community. Laura?
And I just would like to add to that, Clerk Davis, that the mail ballot model, again, means that all ballots are mailed to you, and you can choose how you want to return them, either by mail, ballot drop box, or to a polling center if you need in-person voter assistance. In this day and age, I know when I look at other states that don't have such a great process as Colorado, we are literally considered the gold standard in the elections world. There's no reason in this day and age that anyone should be waiting in line to participate in the democratic process. And unfortunately, if you only offer in-person voting options with limited hours, that limits access to participate in the process. So we are very proud that in Colorado, we have among the highest voter participation in the nation. And in the state of Colorado, Douglas County, we're always tops. I mean, some of our general elections, the even year elections, we get 91% voter participation. That's unheard of in some places that do not have such an effective elections model. And so I understand too, when I started voting, I would always go in person. It was kind of that, it just makes you feel good. And we do offer polling centers for every election. And if that's the way you prefer to return your ballot, we absolutely encourage that too. We have those staff with our election judges. But I'm very proud to have a system where access to participate in an election and have your voice heard is so wonderful.
All right, here's a question that came in online from Michelle. Do you use Dominion voting machines?
This is Jack. I'll take that one. Douglas County uses a system called Clear Ballot. We do not use Dominion voting systems, although I will say that both Dominion voting systems as well as Clear Ballot follow the same process and essentially function in the same way, meaning they both undergo a federal certification, a cybersecurity assessment and certification to the federal government, as well as the cybersecurity and election security certification they must complete within the state of Colorado before they're allowed to be deployed. Fundamentally, they function pretty much the same, but we do use Clear Ballot systems here in Douglas County.
All right, let's go.
Hi, my name is Mark Toby, and I've got a number of questions, but I guess I only have one to ask since that's the rules. I'd like to follow up on a question that was asked earlier about U.S. citizens only voting. What type of verification is done to ensure that when you register to vote, you are a U.S. citizen?
Mark, thanks for the question. That's a really nice one. In fact, what we do when someone registers to vote is in person, for example, they must show identification to prove who they are, and they have to have a valid ID. In addition, when we receive, say, an online voter registration request for someone to register to vote, their information is bounced against a Social Security database for the United States government, as well as if they use a driver's license number, that driver's license number has to be validated through the state of Colorado before that registration can be processed.
All right, here's an online question that came from Pamela. When is the presidential primary election? When will I get my ballot? And I'm a little confused about how it works for affiliated versus unaffiliated voters. Maybe we can clear that up for folks.
Sure, I'll be happy to help with that. A quick follow-up, Mark. I know you mentioned you had multiple questions. Feel free to send any additional questions that we don't get to tonight to elections@douglas.co.us. I'll say that again, elections, plural, at douglas.co.us. So the presidential primary happens on March 5th this year, and ballots for all elections in Colorado, actually ballots go out 3 weeks before Election Day. So your ballot for the presidential primary will be in the mail next Monday. They drop in Denver and will be on their way to you. If you don't get them within a certain period of time, typically 7 to 10 days, let us know at the elections office. We'll be happy to help track that ballot and make sure it's cared for. Roger, I might have missed another portion of that question. Oh, yes,
The unaffiliated.
unaffiliated versus affiliated voters. Thank you. So if you are a registered Republican or Democrat in Douglas County, you will receive the ballot of your party affiliation. That's what will show up in your ballot envelope packet that comes in the mail. If you are unaffiliated, you're going to get one ballot for each party. You're going to get a Republican ballot and a Democrat ballot in your packet in the mail. The key to those for the unaffiliated voters is you may vote only one. If you vote both ballots and they come back to us, neither vote will count. We will reject the entire packet as ineligible. You are only allowed to participate in one party's primary. So I would encourage you at that point to vote one and recycle the other. Keep it simple. You're not required to return both ballots. Even if you vote one and not the other, you don't have to return both. Just destroy the one you're not going to vote and you'll be good to go.
All right, here are the results of our survey question. We asked, which election topic would you like to know more about? 45% said audits of election results, 27 said ballot tabulation, 22 said mail ballot security features. So, Clerk, can we talk a little bit more about audits of election results, since that's what people seem to want to know about?
Absolutely. So audits of election results happen they happen before we certify the results. And so we can't complete it can we complete it before the 8-day? Yeah. So we have 8 days where you can return and cure your ballots if there's an anomaly, no signature doesn't match or whatever. And our overseas and military have until 8 days after the election. If their ballot is postmarked before Election Day, we can receive it in that period as well. So we want to count those before we go into the audit. And then the Secretary of State has this process that they run through for every county to identify which races we'll actually audit and which ballots we actually have to pull. And what we do is we will literally go into the counted ballots and physically remove the ballots that are on that list that we are required to pull out. And we will then have a bipartisan team look at the tabulation system and the marks made in the tabulation system to make sure that it is counting the same as the voter intended on that ballot. So they are comparing what's in the database of the counting system to the physical ballot itself. And there's usually several hundred of these ballots that have to be pulled out and compared to ensure that the system is operating in the way it's intended and that there's no anomalies going on. We have to have 100% match on all those ballots, regardless of the number, in order to satisfy the audit.
It's at 100%.
Yes, 100%.
Impressive.
Yep. And Clerk Davis, I'd like to add also, we're moving into my 10th election here in Douglas County, and we have yet to ever have a failed ballot in an audit.
All right, that's impressive. Let's hear next from Robert on the phone. Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to the rule or the law that if you haven't voted in a major election, then you have to re-register for the next one, because because it seems like that's not happening, but that would like solve an issue where if someone moves out of state, then after a major election they haven't voted, then they've been cleared out of the voting.
Hi, Robert. This is Jack. Thanks for asking. So in the state of Colorado, a voter who does not participate in 2 general elections and has no voter registration updates can be canceled by the National Voter Registration Act. Typically, what you'll see here in the state is someone who may miss voting in 2 elections. Maybe they've just lost interest for some reason. But if they have any update whatsoever to their voter registration record, primary example would be a renewal of a driver's license or a national change of address where they've moved somewhere else within the state of Colorado, that updates their registration and restarts the clock. And so those folks would not be inactivated and have to re-register.
All right. We have a couple questions that came in that are very similar. So I'll try to summarize them. It really is the assertion that voting machines are easily hacked into and the election results are manipulated. That is not the case. Is that correct?
So that is a fun story. But once again, for here in Colorado, we don't have electronic voting systems or machines that could be hacked anyway, because everything does print a paper ballot and can be verified by the voter before they submit it. In addition, in our count room, where our tabulation equipment exists, it is a completely closed network. There's no wireless capability in that room, so nobody could get in and hack the systems. In addition, all of our computers are sealed. We have serial number seals, stickers quite literally, over things like USB ports and whatnot that must be validated by election judges prior to every work session. If a seal ever were to be peeled off, that machine would be immediately taken out of commission for the cycle of the election. The DA would be notified, and I'm sure people would be looking for fingerprints and all the other things. Not a system or an issue we've ever run into here in Douglas County, but we do have safeguards in place just in case somebody were to try.
And I think that goes to this question that was online. It said, Sherry, you say you're under surveillance. Are you able to see who is hacking in? I think they misunderstood that when you talk about surveillance, that is a system that is ensuring people are doing the jobs they're supposed to be doing. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's video surveillance, watching, and we can go back and observe the video of any of those cameras. And we have a number of them throughout our building, quite a few throughout our building, as well as they're observing the mail ballot drop-off mail ballots boxes. And so that we have the video surveillance should there be any question about any of the functions that are going on.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to Wilma on the phone. Wilma, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm really interested in the House of Representatives race. Do I have to fill up in the rest of the ballot, or can I just fill in who I want to go to Washington?
So I believe what you're asking is, can you vote just one race on your ballot, and is that still valid? And the answer is yes. You can vote as many or as few options on your ballot, and it is still a valid ballot that is counted. It's just that those other races don't have a mark, and so they aren't counted. They're considered an undervote on those races. Thank you for asking that question.
All right, here's an online question from Elaine. We knew this was going to come up. Will Trump be on the ballot?
So the question is, will President Trump be on the presidential primary ballot with all the cases that are going on? And the answer is yes. Since there is an ongoing case in the Supreme Court, he is currently on the ballot. Furthermore, there have been a number of candidates who have dropped out of the race, but they did not fill out the appropriate paperwork and notify Colorado. So they are considered still active candidates in Colorado. until they fill out that paperwork, those candidates are still considered viable candidates in Colorado, even though they're not at a national level.
All right, let's hear from Mike on the phone. Mike, go ahead. Hello, Mike. You're live. Oh, Mile. I'm sorry. I'm speaking. Mile, go ahead.
That's okay. I guess I have a question in regards to voter ID. I know you guys say you have signatures, but signatures are pretty easy to mask over. Not to mention, there should be something that's in place to have voter ID with a picture or something. I mean, that seems to be a very simple solution to solve that. Why is that not something that is happening yet?
Colorado does not require an ID to be submitted with their ballot unless they have not provided an ID when they registered to vote. And those ballots are kind of sequestered and put in a different pile so that we can validate that they have included their ID. Otherwise, we have validated that their ID is accurate and it is the person that they say they are. So the signatures are what we use for the validation in Colorado.
And Mile, in addition, when those signatures come back to us, they are audited by our systems as well as our election judges to make sure everything is valid. And we also track the history of a voter's signature. A great example of that is as we age, our signatures change. Or if you have any teenagers at home, I think I heard some kiddos in the background perhaps, they're not going to know how to sign their names when they first get started. And so that signature is going to change quite a bit as they age. So we maintain a history of every signature that a voter has submitted to us as well. So those election judges can make that comparison. I mentioned as we age, our signatures change. For example, if I develop a shake in my signature, that's going to evolve election over election, and judges will be able to see the evolution of my signature over time to ensure that it's accurate. But as Clerk Davis mentioned, first and foremost, to get registered to vote, we need a valid ID to be registered, which is part of the reason Colorado does not require a new copy of an ID for every election.
All right, let's go back here into the hearing room for a question.
Again, my name is Mark Toby. I'm a little bit confused on one thing. I understand that Colorado uses paper ballots only, but then there was a discussion about that we use in Douglas County this clear ballot machine. Could you kind of explain what the difference is there?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So what happens with your paper ballot is once they come back to us at the Douglas County Central Facility, they are scanned into a system where the votes are counted. And it's the system that scans and counts the votes. Our tabulation system is what the clear ballot system does for us. So it actually takes the image of your ballot and scans that ballot front and back when it goes to the system, and then tabulates the votes based on where we expect to see the ovals. And as Clerk Davis mentioned earlier, in the audit process is when we will then compare the physical ballot to the digital image and ensure that the machine has counted that properly and that we have a perfect match.
All right, here's a question that Pam submitted. Does the public have access to the sampling validation? I assume that means the ballots that you run and to do your validation after an election. Or is there public watching that process occurring?
Oh, is it a public meeting, in other words, that they can observe? So I'm going to assume that we have actually two testings that occur for each election. One is a logic and accuracy test where that's before we conduct the election, and we have every entity and every party complete 25 ballots and vote them. They hand tally them, and then they run them through the system to get a result, and it has to match exactly. Each batch has to match exactly. And we zero it out and we start over on the next group. And we confirm that the system is working appropriately. And that is a public event. Then we have the post-election audit, which is the RLA, the risk limiting audit, and that's after we've finished counting. And that is a public meeting as well. So they're welcome to come and observe that. And I guess that's what the question is about.
That's right. Let's go to Marjorie on the phone for a question. And if you are on the phone, we have just about 5 minutes or so. You still have time to press *3 and get in the queue. Marjorie, go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hello? Oh, okay, sir. Yeah, I just want to say that after listening to all the answers, I don't feel confident that we will have a fair election because leaving the accurate, the validity of people voting. I mean, it's like the people are the ones that decide, what is the right, what is the right thing to do, change your address and all that. It just shows that there is no way that people are going to be responsible. People lie, people cheat. And I just don't feel that it's intelligent to say that, it's not your responsibility to take care of making sure at any cost. I mean, making sure that the people that are voting are the right people. I just feel that it's very sad to see that there is no way we can guarantee fair elections.
Thank you, Marjorie. You have a comment?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how to respond to that because, I mean, if someone's going to lie in a mail ballot election, they might lie in person as well. So I don't think that that's the issue. We do go through so many processes to update our voter registration database. And so not only do we receive information from the Postal Service to update an address if somebody has moved and they have put in a forwarding address, we also have the health department sending us death records, death information to cancel those voters. We have the Department of Corrections sending us felon information so that we can cancel those voters. We check that information and we receive new voter registration from the driver's license, Department of Revenue. So if someone updates their address or gets a new or renewed driver's license or ID, that information gets updated, as well as online. The individuals can go online and update this information themselves, or they can email us, or they can come in, or they can, and so there are so many avenues of checks and balances. Also, I don't know if you've all heard about ERIC, but ERIC is a consortium of states who share their voter registration information. And they compare that against one another after every general election so that we can validate if somebody has voted in multiple states. We can use that information to verify if they've passed away in another state. Because if you think about it, if someone has passed away in Wyoming and they live in Colorado, we won't be receiving that from the Colorado Health Department, right? So there are a number of validations that are occurring on a regular basis. If a mail ballot comes back to us as undeliverable, they're immediately made inactive and they will not be mailed another ballot until they update that information. So it is a very safe and effective way. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. Here is a couple of questions that are probably related here. Well, here, I'll let Keith ask it live. Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
My mother passed away in 2023. how do you assure that she does not get a ballot?
Hey, Keith. Well, sorry to hear about Mom. So we would, if she passed away in the state of Colorado, we should have received a notice from the Colorado Department of Health, and that registration would be canceled. In addition, should you have a concern and want to be sure that that has been done, you can always reach out to us at the Elections Division to have that registration validated to make sure that that record has been canceled. Additionally, if, for example, if the ballot were to get mailed, as Clerk Davis mentioned, sometimes people will get a ballot sent to them and they maybe pass away during the conduct of the election. If that family member sends it back to us, we will investigate that to look for a death notice. Or if it comes back undeliverable because someone, say, for example, passes away at a nursing home, and the record is still being processed. If that comes back to us, we can institute the research necessary to cancel that record.
All right, we got time for just two more questions. One came in from Efren. When are mail-in ballots counted? Ahead of the election when they arrive, or after the close of election day?
Great question. So we begin scanning those ballots approximately 10 days before Election Day. I do not consider them counted at that time, but the images are scanned and the system is prepared to do all the tabulation. We tabulate the votes right at 7 p.m. on election night. That is the first time the count happens. By state law, we are not permitted to release results until 7 p.m. on election night. Therefore, we don't even tabulate it, so we can't be tempted to look. We actually have a key logger on the system as well, so it would see if somebody's trying to sneak in there and look at votes before they happen. Prevents us from accidentally releasing results prior to 7 p.m. on election night. So they are prepared as many as 10 days before, but we do not truly count or issue a tabulation until 7 p.m. on election night.
All right, and the last question we have time for tonight came in from Daniel. Someone asked earlier about ballot box stuffing, and I believe that their question was misunderstood. How does Douglas County tell if someone is dropping off more than the maximum allowed ballots into a drop box at one time?
Thank you. So to clarify on that, if we receive, let's say we receive what we would suspect is a ballot stuffing incident at one of our boxes, because all of our boxes are under 24-hour video surveillance, we can have that footage pulled and hunt down things like identities, license plates, and all of the good things we would need to send over to the sheriff's office and the district attorney for an immediate investigation.
All right, thank you very much. Great questions tonight. It's been a very interesting town hall. Clerk Davis, do you have some final closing remarks for us?
The remarks that I have are that I want to remind everybody that this is a dual responsibility. Your voter registration information we're doing everything we can to update this, but it also is the voter's responsibility to ensure that their registration is up to date. And so that is the other part that helps us ensure that we have integrity in our elections in Colorado. As I said, if we have a ballot that's returned undeliverable, they are immediately made inactive and they will not be mailed another ballot. I want our citizens to have confidence in our system and in our processes. And if you have any questions at all, Laura touched on it, get involved. Come and volunteer to be an election judge, put your hands on the process, and you will be amazed when you see all the checks and balances that are in place, all the seal logs, all the seals that are verified before anything is opened, all of the hands and eyes and ears that are on this process is amazing. And it is quite educational. So please get involved. The only other thing I can say is that we appreciate our citizens. We love to have you contact us and give us your questions. We're more than happy to provide all the information you need. If you're looking for trusted information, do not trust Facebook. Do not trust Twitter. Please come to the trusted source at douglasvotes.com. That's where you're going to find the correct information. And you know, we even occasionally we do tours of our location so that you can see all of the accesses that are restricted. You can see the cameras. You can go into the ballot and then the observation area and see how transparent these processes are. So does anybody else have anything to add?
Thank you, Clerk Davis. A question I anticipated but didn't pop up, so I wanted to call this out to the group before we close out today, is how does we make sure somebody doesn't vote in more than one county? And that is the state of Colorado has a single voter registration database. So it's not a separate set of voters for every county wherein somebody could try to cheat the system and be registered twice. Once that ID is validated, you're only allowed to be in one county. So if somebody moves from one to another, your whole registration is transferred to your new location. So you can't be registered multiple times in the state of Colorado. But my closing thought really comes down to the fact that you have a dedicated batch of election professionals serving you in Douglas County. They're your neighbors, they're your friends, they're the people you're in line with at the grocery store, and they care. And we appreciate all the questions and the civic engagement we get all the time, because elections, democracy, right? This is we're the best there is, and sometimes it feels a little crunchy, but that's how democracies work. And we appreciate the opportunity to serve the citizens of Douglas County and do our best work for you.
All right. Thank you on behalf of Douglas County. We appreciate you joining us this evening. If we did not get to your question tonight, we invite you to submit a question anytime on any subject to douglas.co.us/Citizen Connect. We hope you will join us again for future town halls, and we wish you a very good evening.